The message didn't arrive with diplomacy. It came wrapped in silence, an encrypted pulse that bypassed every satellite, every defense grid, and every known protocol humanity had ever built. When it finally decoded, it contained only one sentence. You have been marked for termination. No explanation followed. No demands. No negotiation. 3 hours later, the first killer arrived. It wasn't a fleet. It wasn't an army. It was a single entity, small, silent, and impossibly fast. It slipped through Earth's atmosphere like a needle through cloth, undetected until it was already standing in the center of a major city. Witnesses described it as humanoid, but wrong in every way that mattered. Its movements too precise, its presence too heavy, like reality itself resisted its existence. Within minutes, thousands were dead. Bullets passed through it. Missiles slowed it for seconds. Nuclear response was considered, and then rejected, because the creature simply moved faster than the blast radius. It wasn't here to conquer. It was here to eliminate. Efficiently. Completely. And then a second one arrived. This time it appeared over an ocean. Entire naval fleets vanished in seconds. Ships were cut in half with movements too fast for radar to track. Submarines imploded before they could dive. Whatever these things were, they weren't just killers. They were engineered extinction. Global panic set in. The world's governments did something they had never done before. They unified instantly. No debate, no politics. One directive echoed across every secure line on the planet. Activate Protocol Black Origin. It had been created decades earlier, buried beneath layers of secrecy so deep that even most world leaders didn't fully understand it. A contingency not against invasion, but against annihilation. A last resort humanity had sworn never to use, because it didn't just defend Earth. It changed what humanity was. Deep beneath Antarctica, inside a facility carved into ancient ice, the protocol began. Massive generators roared to life, drawing power from sources long deemed too dangerous to harness. Scientists, those who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment, stood silently as the final authorization codes were entered. Are we certain? One of them asked, voice trembling. The answer came without hesitation. We are out of time. Across the globe, the killers continued their work. Cities fell. Skies burned. Humanity fought. But it was a fight against inevitability. Every weapon failed. Every strategy collapsed. These things weren't just stronger. They were beyond understanding. And then, something changed. The third killer arrived, but it didn't attack. It stopped. For the first time, one of the entities hesitated. Sensors picked up something new, something rising from Earth itself. Not a weapon, not a signal. Something alive. From the Antarctic facility, it emerged. At first, it looked like a distortion, like heat-bending light. Then it took shape. Not fully human. Not fully anything. A presence that didn't just exist in space, but seemed to occupy multiple layers of reality at once. It moved without moving. It was without needing to be. Humanity had unleashed it. They called it the threshold entity. It wasn't built. It wasn't engineered in the traditional sense. It was the result of decades of forbidden research, experiments into dimensions, consciousness, and the fundamental structure of existence. Humanity hadn't created it from scratch. They had opened a door, and something had stepped through. The first killer turned toward it. For a brief moment, the unstoppable machine of extinction paused, as if recognizing something it had not been designed to face. Then it attacked. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a correction. The threshold entity didn't dodge. It didn't block. It simply interacted. The killer's form fractured, its structure unraveling as if the rules holding it together were being rewritten. In less than a second it ceased to exist, not destroyed but erased completely. The second killer attempted to flee. It didn't make it far. Across the planet, the remaining entities began to react, not with aggression, but with something far more telling: hesitation. Their movements slowed, their patterns broke. For the first time, they were no longer executing a mission. They were adapting, or trying to. The threshold entity expanded, not physically, but conceptually. Its presence grew, touching every point on Earth simultaneously. Humans everywhere felt it not as fear, but as awareness, as if something vast had noticed them and chosen not to harm them. The killers didn't stand a chance. One by one they were undone, not through force, but through impossibility, their existence contradicted by something that operated beyond the same rules. Whatever civilization had sent them had created perfect weapons for a known universe. Humanity had answered with something outside it. Silence returned to Earth. The skies cleared. The fires died. The killers were gone. But the threshold entity remained. For a long moment it lingered, its presence pressing gently against the edges of human perception. The scientists in Antarctica watched in awe and terror. They had stopped the extinction. But they had also proven something irreversible. Humanity was no longer limited to its own reality. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the entity began to fade. Not disappearing, but withdrawing, returning to wherever it had come from, or perhaps simply choosing not to be present anymore. Before it vanished completely, a final signal was detected, not in any language, but understood by everyone. You were not meant to survive. Now you are not meant to be challenged. Far beyond Earth, in a distant system, an advanced alien civilization received the data from their failed operation. Their perfect killers, gone. Not defeated, not destroyed, erased. And in their final report, one conclusion stood above all others: do not engage humanity again. Because when killers were deployed against Earth, humanity didn't fight back. They unleashed something far worse. The aftermath did not bring relief. It brought questions. Entire regions of Earth lay in ruin, yet humanity had survived something no one could explain. Governments tried to regain control, issuing statements, rebuilding infrastructure, restoring order. But beneath the surface, a single truth spread faster than any official narrative. We are not alone, and we are not the most dangerous thing here. In the Antarctic facility, the scientists didn't celebrate. They argued. Data flooded their systems, impossible readings that defied every known law of physics. The threshold entity hadn't just interacted with reality. It had rewritten it, locally, bending causality like it was optional. One researcher summarized it in a single sentence. We didn't deploy a weapon, we allowed something to notice us. Debate turned to fear. What if it came back? Worse, what if it never really left? Around the world, subtle anomalies began to appear. Clocks desynchronized for brief moments. Reflections moved a fraction of a second too late. People reported dreams that felt less like imagination and more like observation, like something was watching through them instead of at them. Nothing catastrophic, nothing provable, but enough to unsettle even the most rational minds. Then came the signal. It wasn't directed at Earth this time. It was intercepted far beyond Pluto, an alien transmission, panicked and unstructured. Humanity's deep space receivers translated fragments of it, enough to understand the tone, if not the full meaning. Distress, retreat, warning. They weren't talking to humans, they were talking about them. The same civilization that had sent the killers was now broadcasting to others, spreading a message across the stars. Not of conquest, not of retaliation, but of avoidance. Entire sectors of space were being marked with a single designation. Do not approach. Existential anomaly. Earth had become a boundary. Back on the planet, something else was changing. Quietly, but undeniably. The scientist who had worked closest to Protocol Black Origin began to exhibit differences. Nothing dramatic at first. Faster reaction times, unusual intuition. The ability to anticipate events before they happened. Not predict, but sense. It was as if proximity to the threshold entity had left an imprint. Humanity had not walked away unchanged. A secret meeting was held. Leaders, scientists, military, commanders. The conclusion they reached was not comforting. Protocol Black Origin could not be undone. The door that had been opened could not be fully closed. Even if they never activated it again, the connection existed now. A bridge between humanity and something beyond comprehension. And bridges go both ways. Years passed, and the memory of the attack faded for the general population, but not for those who knew the truth. They watched, they studied, they prepared. Not for another invasion, but for something far more uncertain. Contact. Because deep down, every one of them understood the same terrifying possibility. The threshold entity hadn't just saved humanity. It had noticed it. And in a universe where even killers feared what lay beyond reality itself, being noticed might be the most dangerous thing of all.